It had been there all along, a newborn moth with frail, damp wings. But then I moved, spurred by the night. These wild appendages, these chains, forged by my own hand. They come alive, they dance and flail, and reach beyond the dark horizon. Crimson moth wings billow, spread like blood in dark waters. I want to podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Spawnography. I'm one of your hosts, Pierce Lyden, pronouns they, them, here with, as always,
George Marston, pronouns they, them, or she, her. How the heck have you been, Pierce? It's actually been a little while since we did a regular Spawn reading episode.
It's true. That's true. Yeah, the last listeners, this comes out way later, obviously, but I feel like there's a checklist at this point. Like, will they talk about the fact that they don't record right before the issue comes out?
Right.
Our last episode, you've already heard it by now, was with Chris Killian and Andrew Sanders.
We had a great
lovely writers of I Saw Santa. Very excited for that book. Make sure you order it at your local comic book shop. First order cutoff. Will this come out by then? Let's see. Actually, let me check the schedule.
Well, you should ask about it either way, because they'll probably have copies on hand for you.
It will. First order cutoff will already have
it.
been passed by the time this episode comes out. However, add it to your pull list because it's 2 issues. They're $5 for a double-sized issue. I mean,
that's a pretty solid value for a physical comic. And the guys were really great. We had a great time. And like Pierce said, we're very excited for a new Spawn Christmas story to join the pantheon of holiday tales.
Yeah. And, I think that that's one of the things that's so exciting about the Spawn community in general and the Spawn's universe, right? Is like, there's so many books right now that are out, between Dark Ages, Gunslinger, Bloodletter. We're going to get into Nyx a little bit in this episode, but she's got her own book at this point now too. She's become a really major player in the universe. So Rat City, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, excited to see what those two guys add to the universe and what they have cooking next. Because I feel like from our conversation, it felt like they got more coming.
Yeah, I hope so. I feel like they definitely have more in the tank.
Yeah.
On another note, while we didn't record this past weekend, it's because you were running a marathon.
That's true. I did run a marathon. I ran the Chicago Marathon. I ran it in 3 hours, 1 minute and 11 seconds, which is good for like 4,100th out of like 53,000. So
that's pretty
cool.
top. That's a top percentage. I like that for you.
Now,
go ahead.
What?
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, what was it like running through a war zone?
It was crazy.
The gangs, the warriors trying to get across town.
The people were so nice. No, Chicago, I'm sure that everybody's heard the news of like, oh, it's a war zone and all this stuff.
I was obviously being very sarcastic. Yes, it's a very normal city.
It's extremely normal. It's like a menacingly normal.
Yeah.
Super fun city. We went to some local comic shops. Vanessa came with me and we played some Magic the Gathering. We went into a shop one day and then they were like, oh, come back tomorrow. We play some Magic. And I was like, hell yeah.
Nice.
Shout out to Dark Tower Comics in Logan Square. They were super nice. I bought a bunch of books and we had some good games, and then the race was the race. I mean, it wasn't my best. It was a little. I was not disappointed though. It was a tough. Listen, a marathon's always hard, and I got stopped by a porta potty, so when nature calls.
That's not nice to call a cop that.
But the other thing that's really coming together is I've been working on my own comic, and I've gotten some pages back. And
you showed me that looks looking great.
Stuff's really coming together, so more to come. I guess on that front, I think
nice.
My artist and I we've been chatting, and the first script's basically done. So he's like really getting into it.
Love to hear that.
Eventually I'll have something to promote on this show.
Look at that,
which is cool. But we are in. So today we're covering Spawn number 123 and 124. Now it's been a little while since, as longtime listeners know, we usually read out of the compendiums, but I try to pick up the single issues whenever possible. We are entering the era where every single issue will cost me like $15 because they're lower print runs. But I was able to get these 2 issues for a decent price on eBay. And it's nice to have some back matter again. So we'll dig into that a little bit later.
Back matter, yeah.
Also, it's just like Angel Medina is the artist now that I haven't seen the sort of what you would have read in 2002,
right.
The compendiums are the compendiums and they're great, but like, I don't know, there's something different about having the actual thing in your hands. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get a certain experience, and there are downsides to the compendiums. Now, as always, I absolutely recommend the compendiums. It's the best value to get the number of issues and to read along, but it has its drawbacks. There are times where like double page spreads kind of get eaten alive in the middle a little bit, and you've got to kind of spread it out, but it's still a great value. That said, just like Pierce said, I'm excited to get into some back matter later on in this episode because it's been a while. It's also been a while since we dealt with some of the stuff that's going to come up in Spawn 124 and 125. We're back to Jason Wynn, as those who listened and read along on our last not the last episode, of course, but the one before, where we discussed 122 and 121 and 122, right?
Yep.
Yes. My notorious numbers deficiency. So if you were there, you know that Jason Wynn popped up right at the very end of the issue. We'll see what he's got in store. There's another returning villain. And of course, the return of the ever important currency of the Spawn universe, files.
It's been a long time since we've seen files.
We're getting back to some correspond stuff with these files.
Yeah. There's a lot of like I think we keep saying this in like the post 100 era of like, oh, we're like going back to basics. We're doing this thing. We're whatever. And it's true that we are kind of doing that, but also we are. I think what's still fun about the book is it is still moving forward while reintroducing those core elements. So
yeah,
shout out to Holguin there.
And it's been a while since we saw some of these characters, and we're also getting some new elements here. It's interesting, and I think that heading into 125, which, spoiler alert, is very different, and has its own kind of interesting
did you
vibe.
Read ahead?
No, it's just very visible on the end of one page, and then you see it, and you're like, oh, wow. The art style, certainly, it's a whole thing.
It's really, I'm very excited to talk about that.
I'm super excited. I'm also excited to talk about these. It feels like this is maybe one of those refocusing moments going into that 25 issue bump where it's like, okay, we are now going to reestablish that core Spawn thing to show you the rules are about to break again.
Right. Totally. Well, without any further ado.
Yeah, hit me with those credits, Pierce.
All right. We've got Spawn number 123, Salvation Road Part 3, plot by Todd McFarlane and Brian Holguin, story by Brian Holguin, pencils by Angel Medina, inks by Danny Miki, Victor Olazaba, Ellen Martinez, and Crime Lab Studios, lettering by Tom Warzakowski, colors by Dan Kemp, and Brian Haberlin. Cover by the great King Capullo. And this one is dedicated to Peter Bierstedt, who I looked up, and he was like a lawyer, like an entertainment lawyer.
Hey, great.
Which I have to imagine, like, is Todd like telling his lawyers that he's dedicating like an issue of Spawn to them? Like, are they aware? Are they?
Yeah, is that a little kudos he's passing out to his buds? Is that the challenge coin of the Todd McFarlane world? Is having a dedication?
You got a dedication. Maybe it makes sense. I'll also call this out because it just happened. R.I.P. Ace Frehley.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's back in the New York ground, baby.
Every time that I land, when we came back, it's crazy the timing of it happening, because every time that I come back to New York, I always, if I'm with somebody when I get off the plane, I always just go, "We're back." And then whoever I'm with is like, "What?" I'm like, "We're back in the New York groove."
Yeah.
So...
Well, there you have it, folks. And then you navigate your way across the war-torn cities where the baseball furies are running the streets.
And I get back to Coney Island.
That's right. And then you're safe. That's all you got to do. I don't
know
that
we haven't had a Warriors remake. Gotta say that.
I'm actually glad. I think,
Me too.
I think that there's something about it. And we'll get back into the issue here in 1 second, folks. We'll start to get into the issue in 1 second, folks. But I was talking to enemy of the pod, David Pepos, about it. And he made the point that a movie like that works best in an era that relies on public transportation. And I thought about it, and I think he's right. And the reason why is because there needs to be an element of danger in them traveling and being forced to be in public spaces where anyone could find them is part of the danger. If they could just hop in a car and drive across town, it would be a very different story. That would be a different kind of chase movie.
True. I'm surprised that we haven't even done just like, it's set in the 70s.
Oh, like a period piece remake even. Yeah, for sure. Again, though, I'm glad we don't, you know what? Not every great movie needs a remake.
That's true. Absolutely. Weirdly,
most of them don't.
Last week I saw Brooklyn Horror Film Festival started last week, and so I got to see Queens of the Dead, which is Tina Romero, George Romero's daughter's directorial debut.
I bet that was fun.
Super fun. Drag queens in Brooklyn dealing with the zombie apocalypse.
All right. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Super fun. The kind of movie that like I watched it and I immediately like walked out. I had such a great time that I was like, if you told me I had to watch it immediately again, I'm already sad. Like,
I get that. There have been a few movies like that in my life. Oddly enough, Batman Forever and Congo came out or were in theaters at the same time when I was about 13, maybe 12.
Okay.
And my roommate and I, who were friends all the way back then, his sister dropped us off at a movie theater and we both sat and watched Batman Forever and Congo twice in one day. Because perfect day if you're like 12 years old.
Listen, you mix up Batman Forever with Congo and basically you just get a Cygor
that's true.
arc of Spawn. So
I'm into it.
Yeah.
So speaking of Spawn, diving into 123, now that we've talked about anything but Spawn for another 5 minutes, we're starting off with an interesting scene here with Terry and Wanda, and Terry is comforting Wanda. Now, as we'll remember, the very last thing that happened in the previous issue is that Terry found out his security clearance was being revoked, and it has something to do with the investigation into the files and stuff, the incomplete files and the access of files about Al Simmons.
Right.
So this is Wanda dealing with the fact that Terry has lost a security clearance. He's being investigated, and she's crying, saying, "Why he's been dead for 10 years. Why can't he just leave us alone?"
Which, if he's been dead for 10 years, that means that this. What?
That makes this 1995.
No, it makes it 1997.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. It was 90.
He dies in
87.
97. He's been dead for 5 years. He comes back
in 92.
Excuse me, 87.
I had 85, 90, 90. You're right. Doesn't fucking matter.
And then he comes back in 92.
I think this is also a little bit of that sliding scale. Yeah. Where like it was 10 years ago, whenever 10 years ago was.
Yeah, I hear you.
But yeah, no, and of course they're talking about Al, and she's saying, why can't he leave us alone? I wish he was never born. And then Cyan comes in and says, Mommy, why are you crying? And we cut away. Now, this is a big change for Wanda because through most of this, she's had a deep reverence for her husband. Mm-hmm. And she kind of mentions that here and a strong remembrance of him. And here she's kind of saying, like, I want to put this in the past. I want this to be done. How is he still coming into our lives? And this is after Al has like made peace with Wanda like 3 times now.
Yeah.
On different levels.
It is kind of time for this to happen, at least, because she can't just be kind of keeping a candle lit for him forever. It's one of those things that I was actually happy to see it because I was like, yeah, it seems like you kind of, having this reverence for him is the thing that is haunting you in a way, right? Yeah. It's almost the idea that like that she still thinks of him and reveres the memory of their time together that is keeping him sort of like tied to her. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's a nice little bit.
And I also think that she's right to be like, how is it that stuff to do with this guy is still directing the course of our lives?
Yeah.
Like he's from beyond the grave, literally, and even figuratively with the stuff that's going on with Terry, Al's bullshit and the stuff that surrounds him, his life and his death is central to her life. And no matter what she tries to do, she's got 3 children with Terry now. They've been married, I think, longer than she was with Al.
I think we don't technically know that, but you're probably not far off.
I think at least longer than they were married. I mean, they've been married for like almost 10 years at this point.
True.
So it doesn't matter. Not the point. But the point is that it's a very natural reaction finally from Wanda to just break over this. And you almost want to say thank you for not just having infinite patience to deal with this level of grief digging into your life.
Yeah.
I think too often people are encouraged to make grief the center of their being by media and stuff like that. And the idea of like, oh, a single death can tie you to your past forever.
Yeah.
The narratives about like the cop who's jaded because his son died or whatever.
Well, that's just Face Off.
It's infinity things. And so like, it's nice for someone to just finally be like, I don't fucking want this anymore.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, what Al wants is this delicious cheeseburger and fries. He's sitting there with Nyx, a young woman who saved him from being chased down by the Spawn symbiote. And she's treating him to a burger and fries in a diner. And Al's saying he can't remember anything except for like, he can remember general details. He says he can remember The Godfather and Hank Aaron, how to speak English, but he feels like he's been in a coma and he has amnesia.
I think this is a really fitting kind of arc to have with a relatively new artist, because this Al Simmons doesn't look at all like the Al Simmons that Greg and Todd draw,
Right.
And so the fact also that he has these like fractured memories, I think does kind of work with it, in the sense that like we don't know this guy in a way,
right.
Which I think is kind of fun.
Yeah. And, he's saying, I close my eyes and I see things, stray thoughts and images that don't make any sense. We see the flash of Spawn with the crown of hell. And he says, maybe I took a lot of drugs. There's some really weird stuff happening in my head. And she says, I'm sure it's more complex. Nyx does. I'm not going to pretend I have the answers, but I do have a certain sensitivity about these things. So they walk through the rain back to her apartment. And she's explaining to him, something was done to you. Some part of you was stolen. It must be because you're important. And Spawn is having a manic pixie dream girl moment. I'm sorry, Al is having a manic pixie dream girl moment. Al is kind of like a fucking like depressive, hellish nightmare man.
Yeah.
But
He's
he's
just
having this
Joseph
moment
Gordon-Levitt in
dancing.
500 Days of Summer.
He's dancing in the rain, and he's like, look how the city looks in the rain, the way the lights reflect. And I get it. I've had that thought too. If you're seeing New York for what feels like the first time, or you're experiencing this, it doesn't look like this where it rains where I live. You know what I mean? And it's like that New York is almost like a character in the book itself. And
can you expand on that?
No. And so, but I do like that there's a magic and an innocence to this version of Al where he's like, I don't know, I'm just loving these fucking crinkle fries. I'm loving this cheeseburger. Yeah. Did make me want a cheeseburger and crinkle fries.
I literally got Shake Shack today.
Oh, you lucky so-and-so.
So I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
He does call out, he says like, oh, are you like a witch or something? Because he's sensing that she knows more than she's letting on. And she corrects him and says, we prefer Wiccan. Which is
a very like mid 90s to mid 2000s thing to say. Wicca, sure, a lot of people practice and study this form of thought, and that's totally fair and fine. I have many books on it myself, along with many other types of magical thought. The thing that I think is important to know about Wicca is it's a modern tradition. It's inspired by the meager things we know about the past, but it's not, as sometimes it's billed, a like ancient art,
ancient
of like
dark art or something.
Something. No, but it is a very like 2000s thing for her to say like, I'm actually a Wiccan.
Yeah, and New York itself has a pretty decent history with Wicca. If anybody's, not to bring up X-Men again, but Chris Claremont was definitely very Wicca adjacent based on his relationships that he had in the 80s and 70s and 80s in New York City. So some of that stuff kind of seeps in.
It was a very popular form of like modern pop occult thought. And, it's part of a continuum of those things. There's the like Edgar Casey texts about like Atlantis and crystals and all that kind of stuff. That feeds into the New Age stuff, which feeds into the neo-pagan revival, which feeds into the birth of like chaos magic. Meanwhile, you have the parallel development of like Thelema and the so-called left-hand path traditions. It's interesting. I think it's an interesting topic, and I could talk about it for a while, but it is just a very, like I said, a very like of this era thing to be like, we prefer Wiccan.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
because there's something more mystical about it too.
It's also if it was now, right, you would almost throw that in as like an SEO thing.
Right. Or she'd be joking.
Right, exactly. But in this case, it's just legitimate and it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. And, it's fine. It's just a funny like relic in a way.
And she's a cool alt girl with a couple streaks of color in her hair,
Yeah, she's the goth GF.
Which Al Simmons, I guess, that's his type, right?
It's everyone's.
Angela, I mean, you're right. Angela kind of a goth GF as well, even though she was an angel. So
yeah, she was like the angelic goth. She was the Christian death goth. And so we cut to Jason Wynn, who, when last we saw him, was being pulled out of his cell, where he's been shivering and freaking out for God knows how long, months at this point, because Spawn trapped him and hypnotized him into thinking that all his skin had been peeled off. So he's been living this nightmare of thinking that he's skinless for months now. And they come to him and he's still a raving, like, just victim of this hypnotism. And they're saying, how did Simmons die? Were you hiding something? Why would anyone steal the body of a dead operative? Because Spawn's body is missing, or Al's body is missing. Not as interchangeable as they once were in this issue. Right. And he's kind of stammering like, Simmons, no, he can't really explain, because they won't believe him, that Al Simmons is not just alive. He is an agent of hell, a demonic, unkillable warrior. But who should pop back up but Clown? It's been a little while since we've seen the original continuity Clown. there's still a twist here because there's two clowns and they're the angel and devil on Wynn's shoulders. The angels.
This is such a fun bit.
It is.
That like,
if
we
so
maintain
good.
this dynamic for a while, I would be happy with it.
It's great.
We probably won't, but like,
it's a better version of that manipulation of Wynn by clown that was happening for a while that kind of petered off. Here we're kind of Holguin is doing what he often does best and doing the Claremont thing of going back to that like little snippet, that little morsel of the older story and being like, well, we never quite showed what that was going to be. Yeah. And now it's kind of snapping into place. Here we have the angel and demon clowns on each of, Wynn's shoulders, the proverbial like Looney Tunes kind of depiction. And first off, I love the way Medina draws both angel clown, but especially devil clown.
They're really fun.
It.
I like his stocking feet.
Yes. Meanwhile, angel clown, whose pin says Dogma, by the way. Yeah. The classic film. Angel Clown is saying, tell them that Simmons is an agent of hell. And Devil Clown is saying, play this close to the vest. And one of them is yelling truth. And the other one's yelling lie. And they're having this battle where the angel is saying less sinful and the devil saying feels great. And they're going back and forth with it.
And the Devil Clown pulls out this gun.
Like a ray gun.
That is just insane.
It's awesome. And he blasts him. It says Blazam. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you understand the less sinful feels great joke?
No, but it feels like Ren and Stimpy.
It is a commercial. I think it was for, I want to say Coors. Someone will correct me immediately, or I'll even look it up. But it was these two groups of guys yelling, less filling, tastes great, less filling, tastes great. It was Miller Lite.
Ah, well, that's fun.
Yeah, and that is an ad campaign from, let's see, when was that? 1980, the 70s, 1973. So that's 10 years older than I am. So wow. You'd have to be the age of like Todd McFarlane to be like, that's a good joke. That is one of those jokes that, like you said, has been referenced so many times. Ren and Stimpy. I'm sure there's many others. That's one of those pop culture things that millennials don't even know that we know.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that people younger than us experience that even more given the proliferation of memes. It's like kids being like 69 and then you're like, why is that funny? And they're like, no one knows.
I have to deal with, I'm coaching again. My team's undefeated. We're really
Hell
good.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
But I have to deal with a lot of like brain rot now. And I used to tell them like, we don't say those things, but I'm like, I don't know. I said a bunch of annoying shit when I was a kid. It's totally fine. Yeah. If I have to hear 6-7 like 1,000 times,
I don't even know what that one is.
It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. They just, if those numbers come up, they just go 6-7, and like there's like a
that has to be from like a skibbity thing or something.
It's like that. It's like all the brain rot things where it's not really related to anything. It just exists. And
well, like Skibbity Toilet is a animated thing.
I mean, it is a video, yeah.
Well, it's like a 500 videos or something.
I mean, there's a lot more of it now, yeah. And then
one guy has been making it for like years, literally.
And then there's Italian.
It's a Polish guy.
But then there's Italian brain rot. You know about that?
I don't know.
You know about Ballerina Cappuccina?
Is that Peppa Pig?
Nope. It's just Italian. It's like the thing that's weird about it is I get why kids like glom onto stuff in general.
Well, I did too. Like you said, I had dumb shit that I said.
But this is like such like bad, like probably AI generated, like animated bullshit that I'm like, this isn't even like funny.
No, and all the dumb shit, I hate to sound like the oldest person in the world. I'm going to say this. Kids do a lot of things that I don't get, and I think that's great. kids make a lot of music. I don't get like teenagers and stuff, the current like trends of music. I don't like them, but I understand that it's just like the shit that kids have always done, making their own music, whatever. So I'm fine with that. I'm actually very glad I'm not more interested in stuff that kids do. That said, I feel like you said, the AI of it all is a little bit disheartening, because at least you had to like go out of your way to make a fucking Vine or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like when it was like a meme based on like a Vine or something somebody did or actually said, then it felt more, I don't know, like it wasn't ruining the world. But anyway, Devil Clown destroys Angel Clown with this ray gun with a Balazam. And
Devil Clown destroys Angel Clown with his ray gun are David Bowie lyrics.
And we're left with a sort of gunslinger-esque Devil Clown leaning on Jason Wynn's nose.
Yeah, he's got a big badge that says New Sheriff.
Yeah,
and he does have the gunslinger Spawn type hat. And Jason Wynn finally gets his shit together thanks to Clown, basically like Devil Clown, like kind of invading his mind. And they say, the guys who are interrogating him, the security chiefs or whatever, they're like, Mr. Wynn, we're busy men. Our patience has its limits. And he kind of points out, if I tell you what you want, you're just going to throw me back in my cell.
Yeah,
and he
demands, so I have some demands.
Yeah, he says, I want a long, hot, private shower. I want clean, well-made clothes. I want to sit in a comfortable chair and enjoy an agreeable meal. And then when I've finished, I want a lawyer. And then him and Clown in unison say, have I made my position clear? Which, first off, I would like the bare minimum of human rights, please.
Yeah.
Is even for Jason Wynn, that's pretty rough to have to be like, I'll give you what you want if you just please let me eat and have a shower. Like, God.
Yeah, I mean, he's been in solitary confinement for a while now, so.
And not even just in solitary confinement. He's been in like a padded room.
Yeah.
So back in Nix's apartment, Al has had a shower, and he's saying, I can't even begin to thank you enough. I don't know what I would have done without you. And she gives him a drink. Looks like some wine. He drinks it. And then he looks at her, and she says, what is it, Al? And he says, nothing. And she says, oh, you want to be touched, don't you? And that's what happens. They exchange plasms. And it's the first time Al's done it in a human body, presumably in 10 years or more.
At least, yeah.
And so it is quite an experience for him. But we get the impression that what she gave him to drink actually knocked him out. There's this cool panel on the little double-page spread where he's falling asleep of the shot of the glass sitting on the nightstand, all scribbled out and hazy. I think that sells the storytelling really well. And then he is tugging at something on his hand. He pulls at it, and this isn't a dream. He's dreaming. He's dreaming that there's something kind of coming out of his skin, a little tag or something. He pulls on it. It says, it's a little snag, nothing more, but then I see it for what it is, a fatal flaw. Perhaps it had been there all along, just waiting for me to tug at it. And what he tugs out is Spawn's cape, which wraps around him. He says, deep inside me at my core, this is what I am. We get that whole thing from the beginning where he is witnessing himself.
Double-page spread, this whole sequence, these like two kind of back-to-back double-page spreads of him tugging at the thing and sort of being wrapped up by the Spawn cape, and then the follow-up where he kind of becomes Spawn again.
Oh, it's great.
Just really great. I mean, and this, you know,
the colors were
having it in
really
person,
great. Oh yeah, that
just
was
like
so good.
You know, I would have really flipped for this if I was a kid reading it.
I'm flipping for it now. It looks great. And I mean, the coloring in particular really stands out as a really kind of minimalist palette that works really well. You've got that bluish gray, you've got the green eyes, and then you've got his cape that's just kind of filling the frame. They really, really knew what they were doing with this. I want to feel like they learned some lessons, both the line art and the colorists, the entire art team, about how to kind of communicate those ideas. Like, there are a few overstuffed panels with colors and stuff in previous issues that we kind of remarked on, you know. Spawn is saying, or Al is thinking to himself, I want to scream, but I can't. Meanwhile, he wakes up, and there's Nyx. She says, I feel like Wendy and Peter Pan. Al is laying down. He's tied to this round platform with a kind of red cloth on it. And she says, you can't scream. I took your voice. You can have it back when we're done. The moon's at its apogee. She takes out this gold dagger and she says, just try and relax. I know how this must look, but you have to trust me. And she makes the remark that she feels like Wendy and Peter Pan. And we're going to find out exactly what that means. She raises the dagger.
One thing I like about this whole sequence is that it becomes very unreal, right? Like that they fully lean into the unreality of the situation, and they're like, don't worry about how big the room is or anything like that.
Well, also you kind of get the impression that this is maybe a psychic plane. You know what I mean? Especially because of what's about to happen.
Somewhere extra.
Yeah. And that's the end of 124 is Nyx raising the dagger and saying, this is going to hurt, with the kind of specter of Spawn looming behind her. Another very effective but simple splash page. And with that, Pierce, hit me with those credits for Spawn 124.
You got it. Spawn 124, Salvation Road, Part 4. Plot by Todd McFarlane, Brian Holguin. Story by Brian Holguin. Pencils by Angel Medina. Inks by Danny Miki. Victor Olazaba, Alan Martinez, Crime Lab Studios. Lettering by Tom Warzakowski. Colors just by Brian Haberlin. No Dan Kemp on this one. Cover by King Capullo. Dedicated to Jay Clark, which unfortunately I think is too generic of a name for me to know who that is. There is a Jay Clark who is the head coach of the LSU Tigers gymnastics program, but I don't believe that's who this is. So
probably not.
You know, there's also one who runs Dirt Bike TV. So probably that one.
Probably. Dirt Bike TV sounds like another one of those like streaming services that just has like Benson and like The Day the Earth Stood Still on it. So Spawn number 124 opens right where we left off with the specter of Spawn looming over Nyx. Nyx is raising the dagger and she says, you have to trust me, Al. I'm doing this for your own good. He's laying there and thinking, I don't know who I am. I don't know where I came from. And now I'm going to die. She digs into his chest and and pulls it apart. And we see his huge beating heart. Like it is that's like a Rob Liefeld heart. And I don't mean it's drawn bad. I just mean like the anatomy is wild. But it looks great. And she starts sewing into his heart. She's taking her needle and she says,
yeah, important to note that he doesn't bleed from this.
No.
She's able to sort of like magically open up his chest and sort of do this.
Another indicator that this is actually a metaphysical surgery and not something that's actually happening. And we'll learn more about that in a second. There's a lot of evidence for that. He's saying, try not to squirm. We want to get this right. And he's freaking out. He's saying, please let me die. And she's sewing something to him. And she's they're making the metaphor that she's sewing his shadow back onto him. Just like in
Peter Pan.
Peter Pan. Yeah, where Wendy sews Peter's shadow back to his feet. So as she's doing this, it says the floodgates open and he remembers his whole life. He remembers Wanda. He remembers his childhood. He remembers his life as Spawn. And he's saying, that's not my shadow she's sewing onto me. It's my demon. And we see all the bad things that Spawn has done. Or that Al has done. We see him striking Wanda. We see him stranding Redeemer in hell. We see
Here's something that's really interesting in this sequence, right? Is like we see a bunch of things. The Redeemer one is the one that like stuck out to me specifically, where it says the Redeemer, he journeyed to hell to save me and I left him trapped there. Didn't so much as lift a finger to set him free. That's not exactly what happened. And so since we reading in 2025 know that the sort of Al hitting Wanda thing gets walked back by being Mammon machination. This whole sequence, I'm like, I don't really know how much of this is actually true and how much of this is actually Al's whole memory being fucked with.
What this reads as to me is, have you ever just been sitting there and for some reason you just remember every bad, mean thing you've ever done and every negative interaction you've ever had and every shitty thing you've ever said to someone, and you just remember it all in one moment and you're like, oh, is my whole life that? And it's not. Those are the moments that stand out so much because they're exceptional in your life, but it's that crushing weight of like regret and guilt. He says he's showing, he killed without feeling it. He caused so much suffering and pain as a man and a monster. He says, I blamed Wynn, I blamed Terry, I blamed the devil, and I blamed God. Now I see it's all my fault. There's no one to blame but me. I feel like he's had that conversation with himself before, but that's been as Spawn. Now he's feeling it as Al, and he's having to deal with it on an actual human level that he wasn't capable of before. And that's why I said earlier, I think this is kind of a recentering of that emotional core as we head into that next milestone issue.
I think also, though, that this version of Al feels very separated from those memories, right? He watches those memories come flooding back, but he almost watches them like a movie because he now remembers them. He says earlier in the last issue, he's like, oh, I remember like The Godfather and baseball and stuff. Like,
he just doesn't remember his own life. Yeah.
Right. And so even in this way, like, it does feel like he's being told a bunch of things and that it's not necessarily, I don't know.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say because you don't want some of these things to be true. I'm sure Al doesn't want them to be true either. And there is a question of like, how much is this hell's torment? How much is this Al's torment? And how much is this an effect of the process he's undergoing? So I don't know. It's hard to say that it's all fictional seeming to me, but you never know.
Yeah.
That said, what happens next is fucking terrifying and gross. Spawn, Al, both reuniting, lurches up from where he's being held. And as he shakes, all these flies start gathering in the house. And they kind of snap back into reality as the walls around them start to crumble. And what comes through but just
bugs,
pouring hordes of insects and bugs and all the dark night things that give Spawn his sinful power. They cover Al Simmons and burrow into his skin.
Yeah, Nyx is freaking out, and then she's like, fuck, this can't be good. And next we see Al. He's got the Malbolgia M kind of back on his chest.
Kind of like when we saw Cog when he was in human form.
Exactly.
But human form won't last long for Al. She gives him another potion. He drinks it. He smacks it out of her hand and calls her a liar. And he says, what the hell did you do? And we see this kind of twisted Al backed up against the wall, green energy coming out of his eyes, the Malbolgia on his chest, and chains start erupting out of him. And she says, I was trying to help you. I didn't know. And he says, look what you've done. Why couldn't you have left me alone? She says, I'm sorry. She's being wrapped up in chains. Spawn's costume is sprouting out of his body. It's coming back to him, pouring out of him. It's a really cool and intense visual. And he says, can't you see what's happening? You've destroyed me. And he drops her and jumps out of the window. And I love that as he's jumping, the last scrap of the costume is like wrapping over his knee.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's a really iconic panel. And a really intense double page spread. Nyx kind of goes after him and says like, hey, I can help you. As she says that, there's a panel of her hands
with what looks
a little bit of the symbiote on her.
Mm-hmm. Just a little scrap left behind by the shards of glass as he jumped out the window. Cut back to Jason Wynn, and he is saying the powers that be are saying, please accept our apologies. You understand the need for extreme measures from time to time in our business. And he says, of course. Anyway, I'm sure you'll agree, blah, blah, blah. They are negotiating. I like Columbo fucking clown here smoking his cigarette with a nasty green smoke, saying, "Would you listen to this dope nattering on and on? Come on, JW, let's blow this. JW, let's blow this gin joint. Come on, JW, let's blow this gin joint."
Want to say that one more time?
Come on, JW, come on, JW, let's blow this gin joint. The thing is, I'm usually good at tongue twisters, but that's a tough one. And, you know, they're telling him, okay, well, there's going to be a review for your clearance, but it's really a formality. Best of luck. No hard feelings. And Wynn and Clown walk off together. And Wynn says, "What a tedious little man." And Clown says, "No kidding. It's going to take a month to scrub the smooch marks off your caboose. So what's our next move?" And Wynn says, "I imagine we can do just about anything we want." And Clown says, "Good answer." So as they walk out, we see a security camera which shows Wynn walking alone and Clown saying, "I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." They're both smoking. Wynn is now smoking a cigar, and the green, strange smoke is like billowing off into the darkness behind them.
I will say, I think the smoke is a little bit of a missed opportunity to like put somebody's face in there.
That's what I was kind of looking for, and there is some texture in it, but I think that's just like the cross hatching. It looks great. It's very clearly meant to be something weird and eerie. It almost reminds me a little bit of the look of like when Billy Kincaid came back from the grave, or when we've seen spirits. So maybe there's something to that. Or maybe it's just that it is Clown infesting Jason Wynn's body with his weird, evil bullshit.
Yeah. You know, overall, these two issues, like this arc is a little bit of just putting pieces on the board. Right. And it's also it's funny to have the last arc be like, Spawn and Al Simmons are no longer together. And it's like 4 issues later, Spawn and Al Simmons are together again.
Right.
However, we have not gotten a lot of like internal we haven't heard from Spawn, if that makes sense. Like we've only heard from this amnesiac Al.
It's interesting to get the Al perspective on it all instead of the fully formed Spawn. In a way, this is also kind of stripping him back from that godlike status because, you know, you can't have your hero necessarily be unbeatable and all knowing and all winning.
Right. Yeah. And I do think that some of the past arcs and even Hellspawn to some extent was like ramping the power level to a point where it was like, all right, if this guy's this powerful, what can't he do? One of the things that kept him tamped down a little bit before was that he was always in service of Malbolgia, right? But with Malbolgia gone,
I mean, he took over the throne of hell before this amnesiac Al arc began. And again, you can also see this as the follow-up of Hellspawn in a way, because that ends with Al walking off alive and human into the sunset. So you can kind of, after a similar adventure, I think that comes down to one of those Houdini/Batman things.
Yeah, totally.
Where it's a little bit reminiscent, so you can kind of squint and make it add up.
Totally. We do have a little bit of back matter before we get to final thoughts. Because I do have these 2 issues. The spawning ground has gotten much smaller since the early days of Spawn, where it would be like 3 pages. Now it's just kind of 1.
Letter writing to comics
started to slow down once email happened, I guess.
And forums and stuff.
Yeah. So there's one letter in issue 123. It says, "Dear Todd, I've been collecting Spawn since day 1, way back in 1992. For context, this came out in 2003, this issue.
So 11 years.
Yeah. It all started when my older cousin bought me 2 #1 Spawns for Christmas, and I've been hooked ever since. The artwork and the dark themes are just great. I was a fan of Spider-Man, and Spawn is like a combination of a demonic-empowered Spider-Man with the attitude of Batman. I'm 21 years old now, and Spawn is the only comic that I still collect. I will say it's still what it was in issue #1. The art and storyline are still awesome. You guys do a great job. Thanks to the internet, eBay, and Spawn.com. Even when I got behind on the story because of school, I was able to get all the missing issues of Spawn. Unlike the comics coming from other companies, Image has not lost its touch. I love that Spawn letter writers tend to just throw out some jabs at like Marvel and DC for no reason. After reading over past issues of Spawn again during Christmas break, a question arose concerning issue 100 and the death of Angela. Technically, shouldn't she still be alive? When Spawn thought he had killed Tiffany, Cog, or should I say Kane, told him the only way to kill an angel is through decapitation. Is Angela really out of the picture? If she's not dead, then is there a possibility that she'll be appearing sometime in the future? On a side note, I think that it was in one of the crossovers or miniseries. I remember finding out that hell was just one level of heaven, which was like a total mind blow. Almost as big as discovering Cog had betrayed Spawn and was just using him. In that issue, 119, the different drawings of all those spawns was awesome. Which brings me to one last question. For a long time, we've heard about how much of a badass Cog used to be. Do you guys have any plans to maybe elaborate on Cog's life as a Hellspawn? I would especially like to see him in some battles. Well, there's my 2 cents worth of comments. On a side note, great job on your Spawn figures, especially Wings of Redemption Spawn and Raven Spawn. Those are 2 of my favorite figures. Keep up the great work. Todd, as well as the whole Spawn crew and all the guys at Image. Sincerely, Michael Chin.
You know, I love that Michael Chin there was correct that Spawn still rules 124 issues in. I also think the hell is just a layer of heaven thing is probably not something that anyone's ever going to talk about for a long time. That doesn't make sense with the things that have been talked about in the core Spawn title. And I think, as always, if it happens in the core Spawn title, it is more canon than if not.
Yeah, we're definitely finding that. So,
yeah.
Todd says, "Hi, Michael, and thanks for writing. Oh, and please remember to thank your older cousin for helping bring another convert into the fold with his Christmas gifts to you. Spawnvert. That got you started in our little world. Glad to hear you're still enjoying our journey as much today as you did in the beginning. That tells me we're doing something right. It's been a long up and down trip for my character, and I think he's starting to realize his full potential. After seeing the upcoming work of my creative team, I can safely tell you there is some really exciting and inventive stuff coming in Spawn. Spawn has been in a sort of transitional period, if you will, and it's gratifying that readers such as yourself are still hanging around and enjoying the twists and turns. I promise I'll do my best to keep things interesting. As for the questions, I can tell you without any doubt whatsoever that Angela is in fact dead and will never appear in the comic again. It's always been one of my pet peeves when characters were killed off and then brought back to life through some strange surreal plot twist. That won't be happening here, Michael.
Yeah, that's the reason.
Yeah.
Because that's not ever happened in Spawn.
As for Cog, I'm not sure how deeply we'll be delving into his background, at least in the very near future, though he is an interesting and important character in the Hellspawn mythos. I think we'll be concentrating on the transformation of the Al Simmons Spawn. And glad you're enjoying the action figures too. Be on the lookout for Spawn Series 23. Jeez.
Wow.
Coming soon, featuring an interesting take on the entire Hellspawn mythos. I think you'll like it. Thanks for writing. Your thoughts are much appreciated, Todd. Todd not being like, yeah, I got sued to death over Angela. So
and now Marvel, you will see her again in a very different comic.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. What's crazy is, and I have to imagine that Todd has had these conversations, I'm sure that he's tried to figure out a way to get her back.
Oh, yeah.
He must have, right? Because people would lose their minds.
If he found a way to somehow have a version of Angela,
it would be crazy. Would be absolutely insane.
I mean, Angela is one of my favorite Spawn characters. I think she's so awesome.
I agree.
I remember we just loved those issues with her and Spawn. She was such a great foil for him. Not the character you expect her to be in a cool way.
She's a very Claremont dame.
Yeah.
Right? She's good at her job.
She's like Lady Wolverine.
Yeah. She's good at her job and can get shit done.
Yeah.
And
love
that's
that.
Every woman in a Chris Claremont comic, but
especially compared to Spawn, who was so wishy-washy and I can't even wipe my ass with my cape for so long.
Yeah, it's nice to have I actually think that the the introduction of Nyx here is really interesting, right?
Yeah.
The book is kind of missing its female co-lead, and now we have like another woman who knows more than Spawn.
At least is getting to do something.
Yeah.
And
so
not getting
cool.
instantly murdered.
Yeah, Jesus. Well, listen, Spawn's a very realistic book, okay?
Yeah.
It's about real things, real things that really happen. Issue 124 has a couple letters as well. This first one says, Dear Todd, I've written to you before, and though you may not remember me, I have the complete Spawn collection up until the most recent issue. I must say that I love what you guys did with the series in issues 120 and 121. In just 2 issues, you've turned the Spawn universe on its heels, performing a complete 180 turn on Al and sending the series back to its roots while still advancing the story. Hey, wow, this sounds like a thing that we say quite often in the last few episodes.
They're plagiarizing us.
Yeah. I love the reintroduction of Sam and Twitch into Spawn, and I'll be very interested in seeing where things go with Wanda and the rest of the Simmons family. Technically the Fitzgerald family.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway. I lost my place. Oh, I noticed that Cyan appears much older now. I'm interested in seeing how the twins and Terry have changed too. Is Granny Blake still alive? Will she recognize Al in his normal form after all this time? For the past few years, I've been continuing to buy Spawn out of devotion to you and also out of routine more than anything. Now, though, you've regained my utmost interest in the story, something that hasn't really been the case for probably 50 issues.
Wow.
By the way, Angel is doing a great job, and I love seeing Greg Capullo's beautiful artwork on the covers. Give everyone on the Spawn team my best, and keep up the good work. Your devoted fan, Charles DeWandler.
Wow. Well, I think as fans, we often go through those periods with comics that we even love, where we're like reading them partly out of routine and partly because like there is always the hope that the next issue is going to be the next great issue,
Yeah. Oh, you mean me with the entire X-Men line right now?
Oh, brother. Well, boy, my opinion on that, which is not reflective of the opinions of my employers, is that it is generally unreadable.
Age of Revelation
it's not good. I mean, look, I don't know if I've said this on this podcast or not before, but to me, the X-Men are the one franchise that you cannot do a nostalgia-driven approach. Because the Avengers, they thrive on it. Fantastic Four is the only thing that works.
Yeah.
X-Men, it has to do something new. Like every great X-Men run is a new thing. Grant Morrison's X-Men was a new thing.
I mean, there's arguably 3 great X-Men runs, right?
Right.
And it is Claremont, Morrison, Hickman.
Right. Well, and then you look at stuff like the Joss Whedon X-Men, the Astonishing X-Men, which for a while I really liked. I really had a soft spot for it, primarily because I like the characters of it.
But
when you look at it, and I like John Cassidy, exactly. But when you look at it, it's just a throwback comic. It's just trying to do a Claremont story. And
Joss also famously, like if you watch Buffy and you know anything about the X-Men, you just go, we're just doing X-Men?
Yeah, he's not also a shitty person. So,
yeah.
But all that aside, what my greater point was, a lot of us then do have that moment where it's like, oh shit. The X-Men line when Hickman took it over was like that, for an example. A lot of people were very beleaguered by what the X-Men had become because they were just trying to be anything but like a core vision of X-Men at all.
Yeah.
And Hickman took it over and was like, okay, here's all the characters you love. They're going to do the things you want to see them doing.
They can't die anymore.
but there's some new weird thing about it that pushes this boundary of like their place in the world. Yeah. And I think that Spawn obviously has thrived from that same ethos of like, it's good to kind of take a step back, refocus your core, and then go forward and say, like, okay, now that we all remember the rules, let's break them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and we kind of talked about this a bit with Hellspawn, is that like, when you are able to refocus your central title, it allows other creators a lot of ground to fill in the gaps, to kind of dance between the raindrops,
Right.
and to tell new and exciting stories that do not contradict the rules necessarily, right?
No.
If they don't want to or have to, but allow for, you know, some of letter writers are always like, "Will we see more about this? Will we get more about this?" And it's like, the fact that you're asking that means that there's fertile ground for future stories, which is
Right.
really, really, really cool. Not to bring up enemy of the pod, David Pepos again, but you know, in reading his Space Ghost, and I loved Space Ghost growing
Great
up.
fucking comic.
Yeah, it's a great comic, but I think one of the really fun things about it is that it's just a really fertile ground for storytelling, right?
Absolutely.
And David's very dialed in on how to expand on those little things that you might have seen in the TV show that didn't get expanded upon enough, right? And explore those relationships and explore those dynamics in a more real way. I think his Captain Planet is really, really similar.
Well, to give him
now,
a big bit of credit with both of those things, especially Space Ghost, is one of the things that works for his approach to both of those things and to his Speed Racer and a lot of the other things that he's done is that he doesn't go in with a sense of irony or sarcasm about, he's just like, no, Space Ghost is a superhero, so we're going to do a superhero story with him. It's not going to be winking. It's not going to be like ironic or like postmodern. He's just going to do a good core superhero story that hasn't been done. And I think, again, to bring it back to Spawn, sometimes that's what you want from Spawn is that core story. To get into final thoughts a little bit, if we're ready to do that.
Sure.
I think that these two issues are kind of exactly that. They're a step back. They're a little bit of a breather between like the big moments. They are a step towards a reestablishment of the status quo. And again, we're moving into that 25 issue kind of milestone chapter break arc. So I think we're going to see, I mean, I already know from having seen the first bit of the next issue, and anyone reading along the compendium will have seen it as well. It's going to be very interesting and very much its own thing. And I think that when you are going to do that, stepping back and reminding your readers who your characters are, what they're all about, what their history has been, especially in a way like this that doesn't belabor it.
Yeah.
It's a smart move. And it makes me, I mean, these are kind of just two issues of Spawn, and that's fine. They're not like the landmark issues, but they feel like they are teeing up that landmark issue in a more interesting way. And I really like the Jason Wynn clown thing that we have going on now. That's an interesting way to bring it back. And I honestly just like seeing Clown come back, like seeing Wynn. It's those Dr. Dooms that we talk about.
Yeah. You know, I like these two issues. I think Medina gets a lot of room to do some cool stuff.
Yes, the art is great.
The scripts definitely feel lighter than past issues, but
not a lot of like, again, belabored captions. It's just the emotional impression that what we're seeing gives the people experiencing it.
And we talk a lot about like sometimes Spawn is just a vibe. Like it's not really a story. It's just like a vibe. Excuse me. And I think these two issues and this arc in general has kind of split the difference on that, where there's a lot of pretty vibey stuff. There's a lot of stuff that, like you said, is just trying to get back to core Spawn, because I mean, that's the reality of superhero comics in general, is that you break the toys, you rebuild the toys, and then you break them again. Right. And so whether that is like core concept, whether that is the death and rebirth of villains and heroes and supporting characters, that we are in a constant cycle. It's kind of funny. It's a little bit of like what is in issue 10 of Spawn with Cerebus, where he's saying like, you just kind of do this forever. Like,
right.
And that is the reality of what the book is. There's another podcast called the Oblivion Bar Podcast who just interviewed Todd. And he was actually saying, and I'll link in the description, but he was actually saying like, I wish creator-owned comics always just kept going. Right. Now, certain creators are not built that way, right? Like,
well, and some stories aren't built that way either.
Right. Sometimes you just need 12 issues of Joe the Barbarian or whatever. And like, you don't need 300 issues of it. But to his point, he's like, he even called out, he's like, listen, with my character, it's been 370 issues. There've been some ups and downs,
but he's had room to have ups and downs.
Right. And I think that what he was getting at really is just that, like, if you keep the story going for long enough because you believe in it and you have something that you want to say and a story that you want to tell, and you have a character that can kind of like be your vessel for the things that you want to put out into the world, there's something really powerful about that. And I think one thing that he's reckoning with almost 400 issues into Spawn is that, and we've talked about this a million times, but like, people know who Spawn is that have never read a comic book.
Oh yeah. It's a cultural institution
at this point. Absolutely. And that's partly because Todd's been smart about putting him in Call of Duty and Mortal Kombat and
licensing him out. And you see Spawn toys at Walmart and stuff still.
Exactly. And so I like these 2 issues as sort of getting some chess pieces back on the board. I think one of the things that it's funny that somebody was like, oh, I haven't really read in like 50 issues. And I'm like, 50 issues is like when Holguin comes on. Yeah. So you just haven't read a whole or haven't cared about a whole era of Spawn at this point. Even though I think that we're really getting to the point where Holguin, I mean, a few more episodes, right? And Holguin will have written technically more Spawn than Todd has. And I think that's really interesting. I'm kind of like curious to compare and see where we're at around 140.
Well, I think Holguin and McFarlane make a great team is the thing in this era, especially because it's like we've harped on it so much about Brian Holguin as a writer and his success with Spawn is because, as we just said earlier, he has that ability to go, okay, I see the threads, I have an idea to tie them up. And Todd has the wisdom to say, yeah, sure, bud, here's what I think. Here's what could come from that. In my understanding, Todd McFarlane is a very collaborative creator in that way.
Oh, yeah, agreed.
And, like we had in our interview, Chris said he's not a micromanager. And I don't think that, but I just think he's the kind of person that wants to sit and yes and with someone about these characters and these concepts because he loves that.
Yeah. In a way, it's the thing that I think probably keeps the Spawn movie from happening.
Yeah.
Is that every
Too
time
much
I'm sure that every time he gets into the room, I know that he has talked about having a very specific vision for what he wants to do, but I also think if a good idea gets thrown out, then he goes, yeah, and then we could do this, and then we could do that, and we could do this. And then everybody goes, we have to make 1 2-hour film.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? And that speaks to the, again, fertile ground that the Spawn universe is. And I think that that's really fun. We already know that Nyx will eventually become the ruler of hell, 20 years down the line.
Yeah.
But she's got pretty humble origins here, right? Like
just a Wiccan.
A Wiccan in New York, just helping out Al Simmons. And, I guess Al does get lucky. So
that's right. He exchanges plasms.
Second time we've seen him do that? Only
multiple.
So
no, it's been like 3 or 4 at this point.
3?
He and Angela did it multiple
He and Angela,
times.
They got after it.
He did it with someone else too, I want to say.
They were knocking one big boot.
Yeah, they were.
But yeah, so I don't know. I'm having such a great time with this book.
It's just fun to read. I love a comic that's fun to read. And, I bet if all these people who were like, I don't know about those 50 issues, if they did an hour to 90-minute podcast about every issue, they'd probably find a lot to like too.
I agree. One more thing for the back matter is there's so many cool like movie maniacs.
Oh, yeah.
Layouts and toys and stuff. Here's an alien one with like
the
some
xenomorph.
predators.
Oh, I love the xenomorph.
There's just some really cool stuff. The dog alien from David Fincher's debut, Alien 3.
Oh yeah, the whippet.
Yeah, we got some more Matrix figures and stuff.
Wow,
that are just really cool. With it's Matrix Reloaded specifically. So we got.
Yeah, I remember one of my friends had a collection of some of those.
So cool. And then the Spawn Mutations series is the Spawn Series 23. and that's got all the like mutated Malbolgia and Al
Nice.
Simmons and stuff that are really cool. There's also like Warrior Lilith that you're like, that's definitely an Angela figure, but you changed the name.
Yeah.
That's really fucking sick. There's like chains coming off of these guys. Really fucking cool. You know, we've mentioned that like Todd really kickstarted the adult toy collector market in so many ways, but like, man, it is cool that we grew up at a time when you could just get figures of all the cool shit that you like.
Yeah.
You know, and now
some would say too many of them.
I mean, that's arguable, but you know, and now that we have the NECAs and the Super Sevens and the folks who are sort of following in Todd's footsteps and carving out their own niches in toys is really, really cool. But,
yeah.
Anyway, that's been 2 more issues of Spawn. Next episode, we're going to get into Wake Up Dreaming. Before we go, though, George, do you have any recommendations for our listeners this week?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say I got a really weird one. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and throw out the one that's at the top of my mind, which is I've been watching Love Connection on YouTube from the 80s.
Okay.
It's amazing. It is a window into a culture that makes no sense to me like...
Can you explain what Love Connection is?
Yes.
Because I know from your posting, but...
Love Connection is a dating show where people would go on the show and choose a person to go on a date with. They then go on the date and come back and talk about it. And the audience would also choose a date for them using the quote unquote magic of computers or technology that was meant to match them. So what you see is you see a person who is going to choose a date. You see the 3 choices they had who are like little dating videos. And then you find out about their date. And here's the thing. First off, everyone who was remotely our age in the 80s looked 15 years older. So you'll see someone on there that's like Doug, oil rig mechanic who's thrice divorced and he's 26 years old and he looks like fucking Chris Christopherson. And then he goes on a date with a woman who looks like she was in the background of Designing Women. And they talk about how they went to like Las Vegas for the weekend and like he shit in the tub and whatever. Anyway, you don't have to watch Love Connection, but I highly recommend finding some weird old artifact of culture to dig into that's like something you just can't see anymore, that you're not going to turn on a streaming service and watch Love Connection. You're going to go on YouTube and find weird old rips of it that look like fucked up VHS. Do that. Find some weird old thing and just get into it and see what life was like for the boomers who are now destroying us back in the day. Yeah. I'm older than Homer Simpson. Like in continuity, he's like 37 years old. I'm 5 years older than that.
Is Bart still like 10?
Yes, and Lisa's 8.
Lisa's 8?
She turned 8 in 1990.
Jesus Christ. I've never been a Simpsons person. Never really watched much of it.
Well, you know, as a true millennial, I could have this entire conversation in only Simpsons quotes, except only from seasons like 1 through 10.
I grew up with people who loved The Simpsons, but I wasn't allowed to watch it as a kid. So
there's a lot to love if you wind up going back to some of those classic seasons, but that's a different recommendation. Go find some weird shit like Love Connection or fucking like Geraldo Rivera or whatever the fuck and see how people were talking about each other 40 years ago.
Hell yeah. Do some YouTube archaeology.
Exactly. Just don't listen to any political opinions.
Yeah, 100%. For me, my recommendation, really, I'm going to go back to Queens of the Dead. By the time that this episode comes out, hopefully it'll be on streaming, and you might not be in a mood for a zombie movie, but that movie proves to me that, like, if you just give people from like, niche or marginalized communities the money to make the stories that they want to make, then they'll be better, than when some corporation is like, Avengers Infinity War needs a gay person.
Right, exactly.
And it's like one of the directors
saying one line and it's not representation at all. No, you're exactly right. And I think that those are the movies that speak to people that are in those communities. I mean, okay, it's seen as, maybe a little problematic now, and I get why, but look at the Rocky Horror Picture Show. That took off because it speaks to a community of people on their own level. Like that was made by queer people for queer people. Not everyone involved was queer, of course, but like many and most of the people like who were behind the scenes had a lot of connections in that community. So when you watch it, it comes through. Same kind of thing.
Well, and also too, that Rocky Horror is a great thing to bring up because I think also the way that it sort of has transmuted through pop culture has been really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, Rocky Horror wasn't really like a thing, but Perks of Being a Wallflower was a really important book to me as a kid, as like a 13-year-old. And in the book, because it's set in the 90s, they talk about going to Rocky Horror like midnight showings. And there's like this inherent queerness in that narrative. He was speaking to his own experience.
Right.
And then I was like, what's this thing? And then I sought it out and like, there is something really powerful about not being like, representation matters. Here's the fourth stormtrooper. He was pansexual, and it actually being a story about people discovering themselves, making fun of themselves. I think Queens of the Dead, the funniest thing about it is like, there's one character who's like the straight, I don't get it. My sister's queer, plumber. And like, but he keeps laughing at jokes, or he keeps not understanding things in a way that at first I was like, fuck, this guy's going to die in like the first 15 minutes. And he doesn't. And he just kind of becomes, you realize that he's like not a bigot. He just doesn't get it.
You're right.
And it's so fun. Like he gets pronouns explained to him at one point and stuff.
Sure.
And we do a little like, who's on first, they, them thing for like, and like whatever. Yes, it's the obvious
if it's someone
joke.
Who's part of the queer community. I mean, look, it's okay to laugh about stuff that is like transness and queerness and like these difficult identities to navigate in our current world. There's so many things to laugh about if you're laughing with us.
Yeah, I think that you and I
with us.
I think you and I have probably experienced this quite a bit, where people like use the wrong pronouns and they're like, oh, fuck, sorry, fuck, oh, shit. And then they make too much of a show almost about like that they know that they fucked up, but they're making a show because they want to know you to know that like they do care. They're just like fucked up. And one thing I always say is like, I'm always like, I can tell. Like I can tell if you're doing it on purpose, and I can tell if it was an accident.
And that doesn't mean that you should approach any person who uses pronouns that are not what you envision for them, or any assumption of someone's pronouns at all. But I feel the same way. And a lot of people, I think, do, where it's like, again, I can tell if you slipped up. I can tell if you said it to be obnoxious. I can tell what your intent is, because people who are trying to piss you off don't go like, bro, you got to check this shit out. This is so sick. Yeah. They go like, okay, bro, or whatever.
And then you're like, okay, here, what are we doing? I
get what you're saying. Yeah. So anyway, lecture over. Just be kind.
Welcome back to Pronouncography.
Pronography? No.
Yeah, so Queens of the Dead. That's my Tina Romero's Queens of the Dead is my recommendation. Very, very cool. If you're looking for some queer horror that's a super fun time, that has a really good heart to it too. Had a great time at the movies.
All right.
But that's been another episode of Spawnography. If you like the show, please rate, review, subscribe. Tell your friends if they like Spawn, if they like hearing people ramble about random things. I feel like we're getting to the point where 50% of our episodes are not about the actual book sometimes, but
it's not
that bad. It's not that bad, but like I said, rate, review, subscribe on your podcasting platform of choice. It really, really, really helps out. As you know, we do not have ads and things, so we don't pay anybody to promote us. So word of mouth is the way to go. We have some fun stuff coming up. We will have Chris Killian and Andrew Sanders back to talk I Saw Santa once that book releases. So look for that in the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
But until then, George, for Todd so loved the world,
he gave his only begotten spawn.
See you later, Hellspawn.
Spawnography!
Spawnography is recorded in Athens, Georgia, and Queens, New York. It's produced by me, Pierce Lyden. Our theme music and logo were composed by George Marston. Episodes come out every Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, subscribe. You can find us on social media at Spawnography or at SpawnographyPod. If you'd like to reach out to us directly, you can do so at spawnographypod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, see you later, Hellspawn.